Get the tissues out because the bogies are back. Yeah, some things never change. Humbling, let's say, loss to Spurs today. But let's just jump in. Here are the 5 things that I learnt from City versus Spurs. Number 1, a harsh reality for our new signings. Now, Pep has given quite a lot of faith in our new signings. Obviously, Ryan Aït-Nouri, James Trafford and Reijnders started both games, with Cherki starting this one, obviously getting his cameo in the last one. And he should have had faith in them within this game. I mean, they all had great debuts. Nothing to really worry about, but obviously today was a bit different. Maybe we had the wolves pulled over our eyes from the last game. Yeah, nearly works. Yeah, it was a shame to see Aït-Nouri go down so early in his Man City career and in this game particularly, because for once I was quite excited to see the same back 4 and even 5, if you include the keeper, for 2 games consecutively. I don't know when the last time that was, but I've been clamouring for it for years. Saw the lineup, saw that it was the same back 4, but evidently changes had to be made. But I will touch on Aït-Nouri in a few ways later on. Reijnders, though, was playing a little bit more reserved because of Cherki in the team, but he was completely outdone by Pape Sarr in the midfield. And it was kind of a Bruce Banner to the Hulk of a performance, from man of the match to, according to Who Scored anyway, the worst rated person on the field. And I think a lot of that you've got to give credit to Frank, Thomas Frank that is, in the way he kind of set up his team. They were a lot more physical than I thought Reijnders was used to. This was definitely more of a kind of hello and welcome to the Premier League. We all thought it was going to be a walk in the park for him, but this game kind of really opened his eyes, let's say, to what the Premier League's all about. The same kind of goes for Cherki. He was more involved in the game, but by doing so, he was dispossessed more. His passing range was a bit off. There was a few times he tried to make that switch over to the left and it didn't quite work. And it's a tough one for Trafford. Obviously, I think the way Thomas Frank that is, set up his team made it really difficult for him in particular, especially with a Rodri-less City. But that second goal, I don't know if it was overconfidence, I don't know if it was a lack of gelling with his team already, or just the fact that the pressure was too large from the press. But it really wasn't great, and it didn't really fill me with confidence that the situation is quite settled, goalkeeper-wise that is, but that is a whole different category that I keep saying I will touch upon later in the video. This game in particular doesn't really change my view on all the signings. I think they're great. I think that they will all be a success at Man City, but I think the excitement of Wolves and reality is hit basically. We know now that there is work to be done and we aren't going to have a walk in the park for the Premier League, and that was very, very evident today. But yeah, the signings today had a big old wake-up call, and hopefully those things will get ironed out. But for now, it was a bit of a worry to have us grounded and kind of slapped in the face and told to wake up that things aren't all rosy. My second point is that Thomas Frank will be a success at Spurs. Now, I think the biggest indicator of a good coach is simply the biggest anyway is player improvement. Taking someone who is an outcast in the team or a new signing or anyone within the squad and elevating them, seeing something in them that wasn't there before and then kind of bringing that to the fore, whilst also putting them in a tactical system that they're trying to implement. Something like that is, for me, the biggest indicator of a good coach. Now, my second indicator is adaptability. Now, I know that's ironic coming from someone who has been watching Pep ball for the last 10 years and still thinks he's the best manager in the world. But adaptability, for me, is a massive, massive skill. Being able to see a team, break them down, find their weaknesses, find their strengths, be able to coach those to a team, your team that is, and execute that plan. Having those two characteristics makes you an extremely good coach, and Thomas Frank has not only shown that at Brentford, but he's bringing that to Spurs. So I revisited Brentford's 2-2 draw against City last season, a game I was actually at, and I thought at the time that it said more about City than it did Brentford, that we threw away the lead, in this kind of Rodri-less team that was kind of out of form, didn't know what they were doing. Pep seemed to be like he was, slightly losing his mind, and everything was a bit of a mess. And I didn't really give much credit to Brentford at the time that I should have really done. But he set up very similar today. He had the kind of tight-knit 5 at the back, really hard to break down defence, and he paired that with an extremely high press, putting pressure on the goalkeepers, centre-backs, and mainly our kind of Rodri replacements, a position that usually would be very difficult to exploit, but because of the lack of Rodri, I think it is much easier to add pressure to our back line because that outlet isn't quite available all the time. So he frustrated us in whatever way we tried to play today, and I think he's done that against PSG. To be fair, all of his games so far at Tottenham. And my thoughts now are, it's fun to laugh at Tottenham. Haha, they were 2-0 up against PSG and end up losing the Super Cup. Haha, they lost out on Eze. But I genuinely think that a Thomas Frank Spurs is a much more dangerous prospect for the league and, like the Chelseas, the Arsenals, like everyone who's trying to fight for something. I think he is entering that now, and he will be there. And to be fair, I'm all for it. I absolutely love the bloke. I don't like Tottenham too much. They frustrate me a lot. But Thomas Frank, I'm all here for. So more life, more success to him. Number 3 is, do we have a keeper crisis? Now, I touched on Trafford earlier on. I touched on Trafford the previous episode of this. And I've been singing his praises from the high hills. But today was the first point where I remembered what it was like to have a Pep Man City before Edison. Hart didn't work from the off, even though he was a great keeper for us beforehand, and great keeper full stop, I should say. Similarly with Bravo, he was arguably worse. But then Edison came along, and that's when the dominance started. Now, yes, he's had wild moments. Yes, he's not the greatest of kind of standard keeping, your normal style keeper, but we're forgetting how integral he is to the way that Pep plays. And I do worry that this is a situation of the grass is greener with James Trafford. Not the one thing I need to preface with all of this, I'm not saying James Trafford is a bad signing or player. I love the signing of James Trafford. Bringing an academy graduate back, the season he had with Burnley, 29 clean sheets and ridiculously low amount of goals scored. And it's someone who, by normal goalkeeping standards, is an elite. Is a very good goalkeeper. Someone who's going to be England's number 1 at some point, destined for the top of the Premier League. It's all there. He's so young, and by traditional standards, he is a better keeper than Edison. But we never really needed a traditional keeper. Or I should say, Pep has never really needed a traditional keeper. His most kind of successful periods, he's always had the player who is elite with their feet and a good goalkeeper. And when he has had his kind of more underwhelming spells, he's had very good goalkeepers who are okay with their feet, or sometimes underwhelming with their feet. But it's so integral to his dominance. Not to play well. Obviously, he had a good time at Bayern, and Neuer is a fantastic keeper. But I think, arguably, it was slightly underwhelming. And maybe it was because of that. We have seen when the keeper isn't right, Pep's teams just don't tick. So yeah, it did get me slightly worried that, are we trying to replace the irreplaceable? Are we going to have to spend a few years without finding the right keeper before it clicks with Pep? But then you realise he's going to leave soon, so maybe it's a case of keep Edison for this season, keep Trafford, bed Trafford next year, and then when Pep leaves, we've got ourselves a ready-made elite goalkeeper there with James Trafford for the future. Do we have a goalkeeping crisis? No. But is there a little voice in the back of my head that reminds me now about how bad things were before Edison? Most certainly. Number 4, and it's a bit of a strange one, it's that I might not be doing this format for much longer. Yeah, it's obviously a personal one. I think I say I've had a tough week. I've had a busy week. I'm very tired. Nothing I can't handle, but I had a lot of work to do. Did it. Was very happy with myself. Came home today from the show and realised that I had to immediately sit and take notes for this game, study this game afterwards, look at some minor stats, and just take a lot of my time out of the day. Obviously I want to spend it with the little one. He was getting frustrated, and it's more the fact that this is like a quick turnaround video, and I would like it to be nicely shot, nice sounding, lovely graphics, all this up, or just, you know, a more effort put in. And I like to be able to space it over a decent bit of time rather than kind of getting up on the day or the day after. So if you could do me a favour and have a little look at the small catalogue I have of videos on this channel, and pick, or just say, you know, oh, I liked the gamified XIs, the kind of City Academy ones, stuff like that, or I like the interview previews, or I like the streams or the green screen piece I did. Have a little look at that and just see, or if there's anything else that you think that might work on this channel. I think I'm gonna try and aim for something that's a little less time constrained, just so I can give myself like a whole week of evenings to do it rather than kind of rushing it over a weekend. But yeah, just let me know what you think. Drop in the comments if there's anything you think that might work on this channel. But yeah, I don't think I'll be doing this format for too long because it's currently 10:15 and I would like to sleep. Number 5, and the big one, I think that we need to sign Livramento. Yes, it's a big shout, and originally I thought it'd be greedy to sign Livramento. We don't need a player like Livramento. Now I think it should be high on our priority list to get a deal done for him specifically before the end of the window. Now obviously City fans have been talking about it for a while, and even James Alcott brought it, I think it was James anyway, it was brought up on the show anyway, with kind of similar sentiments of what was being passed around City fans, and the fact that, you know, he shut down the world's best, he can defend on both sides, he can attack on both sides, someone who's in England international, and he's still very young. Now with all that information from the show and taking that home fresh in mind, I watched the game and realised it's not like this would be nice. It's like, actually, we really, really need someone like him. Yeah, the Ait-Nouri injury is kind of a minor point, but it's more the fact of I was so excited that we finally signed an actual Prem-proven, internationally proven fullback for Manchester City, not a centre-back filling in that position, and naively forgot that they could be injured. Now, yes, it's not the biggest of injury by looks of things so far, so he should be back pretty soon. But the fact that we are now going to have to fill his position with a centre-back out of position does annoy me quite a lot. So having Livramento on the left and Rico Lewis on the right makes more sense to me than having a Ake or not Kanji because he's probably going to leave, but an Ake on the left and then Livramento on the right. And my second point kind of contradicts itself from the first point, and that is that Rico Lewis is not a right back. Similarly to Reijnders today, his performance was quite a drastic change, and I do feel for him because he has been doing well filling that position, but he's playing it out of position, or at least not in the traditional sense of a right back. And I'm confident in saying that if Kyle Walker was still at the club, someone who I have been lamenting, I think that's the right word, for some time now, but if he was in the side, when John Stones slips, I don't think that first goal gets scored. I think that Kyle Walker's recovery runs and stuff like that were fantastic. It was one of his massive strong points, and if we were in that position, he himself would have been in I know Rico Lewis nearly got there, like he was very close to it. This is not bashing Rico Lewis, but I'm very confident that Kyle Walker would have got there. Just the natural right back instincts, the pace, those kind of seconds and moments that you need to make a defensive decision, Kyle Walker had over Rico Lewis. Not saying they were always the right decisions, but the speed of thought was always there because it's more natural to defend. I'm in no way saying that the Trafford second goal was anything to do with Rico Lewis, but the press grew in confidence because of some of Rico's actions anyway. There was a few misplaced passes, one to John Stones and a more notable one to Trafford himself, that allowed the press to press harder. That kind of, the misplaced pass to John Stones allowed a bit more time for the press to get to him, and then made a manageable situation a little bit more unmanageable. And I think the Trafford pass was completely unnecessary. I think there's situations where you do need to get it out, and it's difficult, yes, because Pep doesn't want to play that way. He never wants to play that way, and he won't let you play that way. But there are times when you need to just hoof it out. And also, when that press grew in confidence, there is the natural right back slot that was filled by Kyle Walker. That space is now vacant because Rico Lewis is being pushed up. Now, I'm saying all this like it's his fault. He's being told to do this. It's not a slight on him and the way he plays football. I think he's a great footballer. Some of the pressing that he did going forward, some of the tackles that he made, and some of the movements and passes and sequences that he's involved with is great. But I don't think he's a right back. So having a right back in those positions, or at least having the option to have someone who has been playing that way for so long, just fill that space naturally. Because I do think that there's been plenty of times when John Stones is passing around the back, he looks over his shoulder, he's waiting to see Kyle Walker there, and there's a vacant space. There's Oscar Bob too far up, who's already being marked, and Rico Lewis is kind of playing too centrally for him as he turns back in. And I think personally it's a situation I like seeing, and yeah, would very much like a right back to fill the right back role. Saying that though, I do think those two issues in terms of the confidence being given to a press and the vacant right back role to avoid or get out of presses, I think that situation gets resolved when Rodri comes back. I think that he is so press resistant that you are allowed to play the Rico Lewis inside, 3 at the back, all this kind of, inviting pressure on. But without Rodri, I just think it's too risky for the reward, and sometimes you have to boot it up. We've got Haaland there, he likes a fight. Sometimes you just got to give him something to do. But that is it. Yeah, some interesting points, I would say. Some things that are definitely not going to happen, and definitely an eye-opening game. I think that I was living on cloud 9 after the first game and have a lot of egg on my face today. I think I've said some statements that are frankly looking ridiculous now. But if you did enjoy this video, please give it a like, give it a subscribe, and I hope to see you soon, depending on what I do. But there is going to be a video coming out next week, September the 2nd or 1st, depending. If I've gone out of focus, I'm pissed. I've done autofocus. I'm very much against autofocus, so if I have gone out of focus during this video, I apologise. I'm a one-man band. Is that a thing? I don't know, 3-man band for all you near 2010 wrestling fans out there. Goodbye.